Hello and welcome to Old Bollocks. This is a new audio and video podcast, which makes this intro even weirder because Stephen is sat opposite me nodding while I'm doing this. Hello. This is kind of like the meeting of minds. It is the Old Head show and Talking Bollocks coming together to make Old Bollocks, which is me, Howard H. Smith, and my good friend...
Old Head or Stephen, depending on how you want to address me. You know.
Well, I made the mistake of calling you Old Head in the past, and that just it didn't really work, did it? You know, first name Old, surname Head.
If sometimes I refer to myself as Old Head, sometimes it's Stephen. I haven't really come to a firm grasp on who I am. I'm still figuring it out.
Fine. Well, I called myself H back in the day. You know, when we put out Acid Rain's first group of albums, I was called H on the back of them. Little did I know that it would take me another 30 years to find out that H actually stood for hyperactive in ADHD. So there you go.
That's funny because I was always wondering about the H because I was all like, because H is for Howard, but then when you write it as Howard H. Smith, I'm all like, is that just repeating the H from your first name?
Yeah, that's exactly what that is, dude. Yeah, well, basically, it's the updated version because if Acid Rain came back as they did in 2015, I'm not going to assume everybody watching or listening to this knows this.
You should know.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, go watch the bands you should know video.
Yeah.
When we came back, I thought, well, I can't come back as like H because everybody knows who I am anyway. Well, not that again. Oh, shit, that sounds arrogant. I do apologize. But so I just thought I can't basically do the teenage thing I was doing anymore. So the H, the H in the middle is just it's a throwback. It's a reference. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, it is interesting because you guys did kind of do away with some of the traditions, but I think that's a good thing. You know, like the Apple Core thing, I think that was used on the first 7-inch you guys did, and then you retired that, and then on the liner notes you don't say something about gracias anymore.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And you know why not? Because we're not 19 anymore.
Exactly.
I mean, and if somebody could have told me at the time we were recording The Fear, it might be a good idea to not start the album referencing an advert to Peanuts, because in years to come it will mean nothing, you know.
But there's a part of me that thinks that there's a charm to that because it almost just becomes like it's just your thing on the album. Like it didn't exist as an ad before. It's just what you guys decided to do.
Well, funnily enough, I'm gonna name drop here, so get ready to catch it.
All right.
I was talking with James Murphy. And he always thought it was when the nipples will strike. And he sent me a message. Saying, "Don't forget when the nipples will strike." I'm like, "What are you on about, dude?" And
so he thought all those mouth noises were you guys sucking on some tits. Was what it was.
Well, it's bizarre, isn't it? But the weird thing, the most bizarre part of the conversation, he was like, was when he replied. He was like, "Man, I'm so embarrassed." He said the amount of times I've listened to that album and I didn't know what it said. And I was sat there thinking, you've listened to it?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. But so anyway, should we do you want to like tell everybody how this came together? The fact
it's funny as we're talking about Acid Rain. I mean, clearly that's how it all started. Was I did a video, a Bands You Should Know video, about Acid Rain, and it was, I guess I did a good enough job that Howard himself contacted me and said, you know, great job. And then I ended up getting access to their new album prior to it coming out to do a really good review on it. And then I joined Howard's Patreon, and I'm a loyal Patreon subscriber. But plug your Patreon real quick. What is it? Is it just Howard H. Smith?
Do you know what? I was just going to butt in and do that anyway. This is going to work really well. You're clearly 2 or 3 seconds ahead of me mentally. It's patreon.com/Howard H. Smith.
Yeah, and it's definitely worth it because not only does he share some cool old shit from back in the day with Acid Rain, but also he does different like a radio show and different interview stuff that you don't get to hear on his regular podcast, which is Talking Bollocks Oh shit, I didn't want to say that word because I sound awful when I say it. That's another reason why I want you to intro every episode, because I say bollocks and it just sounds, I don't know.
Do you know when you say bollocks, it sounds like somebody saying in the 18th century, you know, like bollocks. Absolute bollocks.
But I'm old school that way.
Look, it's well, you're wearing a very old school T-shirt. It's Mordred, by the way.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, it's come together, and there was a feature that I started recently.
Yep.
And it's basically doing a Patreon only podcast once a month with a patron where we talk about new releases and a classic album, and we did the second one together, and it went really well, and we were both, you know, you said towards the end, look, we should do a part 2, and then I put it out on Patreon, and everyone just started saying, yes, do part 2, this is great, really enjoyed it, do part 2. And instead we thought, why just keep the love for patrons? Let's spread the news.
Yeah, and honestly, I was pretty surprised at how quickly this came together, because I just made a little cheeky remark saying like, "Oh, Old Bollocks is a good name. That should be a thing." And then very quickly you responded. I'm like, "Oh shit, this is really a thing." And then and literally within a couple weeks, here we are looking at all of you guys out there and bringing this new show to you guys.
But that's how I work, as I'm sure you're well aware. It's like a good idea is a good idea, and it's a good idea now. It'll be a good idea in 3 months with loads of pissing about and needless emails and messaging. And do you know what I mean? It's like we and in case anyone thinks by the time they get to the end of the show, it sounds like it only took a few minutes to come together. But we
to be fair, that intro song that you hear at the beginning of this, I literally wrote and recorded that in 20 minutes.
And you sent it to me, and I was like, "Yep, sounds good. That'll do. That works for me." The one thing that we'll have to keep in mind here, especially for people out there, but even for you, is that I did tell you that I was going to try not to fanboy too much. So even you at the beginning, you notice I start talking about Acid Rain, and I'm going to try to not do that. But you have to keep in mind. So let's put it into perspective. My favorite American band is Metallica. My favorite British band is Acid Rain. So in essence, I am now doing a show with James Hetfield. So So I'm a little excited and nervous about this. So it's one of those things where I'm going to try to be a professional here. So seek and destroy.
Let me hear you say, I am the table.
Oh God, no, definitely not.
That's going to be one of our classic albums we do is going to be Lulu, you know, because it's coming up on an anniversary.
That's one of the classic albums you're going to do. Yeah, and I'm just going to listen to your opinions, a bit like the album we're going to get to later on. But you know,
let's jump into it.
Do you want to? Should we start with the new releases?
Yeah. I figured maybe we'll talk. We'll each talk about. Maybe we'll go back and forth talking about the new releases we want to talk about, and then the main feature, the headliner, if you will, would be the classic album that we talk about. Yes. Which in this case, some people probably would say it's not a classic, but I do.
And the thing is, that's why I wanted to suggest it. I mean, we'll put it in the description, so you know, there's no secret. It's State of Euphoria. Now, I'm not a fan of State of Euphoria. It's just between it, you know, I don't particularly like it, but I'm interested, and I know it was how you discovered Anthrax. That's why I stepped away from trying to argue with you about it, that you were wrong. But I'm interested to hear, like, you know, why you like it so much, what you like about it. And also I think, you know, from my perspective, I'd like to take that and apply it to my listening experience as well, and go back to the album and go, you know, wow, that maybe he's got a point, maybe he hasn't. But
I feel that's more interesting anyway, because I figure there's going to be plenty of albums that you and I both love that we can just ejaculate all over for 20 minutes or whatever. But
exactly. And to be honest, you've got your own podcast for that.
Yeah. So let's jump into new releases though. You want to go with whatever your first newer album that you want to talk about?
Well, I'm going to start start because I'm a man of contradictions. I'm going to start with an EP for
Okay.
the new albums, and it's called The Life Project. Now, The Life Project is he says trying to sound knowledgeable, but getting the details up on his phone. Right? Now, the weird thing about this is, first up, have you listened to any of it?
Yeah, I actually listened. Everything you wanted to talk about, I went and listened to last night.
Yeah,
so
ditto, and including today as well.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about it is, it's Josh Rand from Stone Sour, who I have got next to no time for. Not the man, Stone Sour. Just middle of the road, mid-tempo. Corey Taylor ain't doing it for me, you know. And he's put a band. Well, not a band, but he wrote everything. He did everything at home. And then he got Cassandra Carson, who is the singer and guitarist from a band called Paralandra. Now, I had never heard of her, to be honest. I didn't know who Josh Rand was.
Yeah.
And I think it was sent to my Talking Bollocks email by one of the PR companies that I get stuff from.
Yeah.
And I just clicked on it. I don't even know why, but and straight away it was the first single, which is called Ignite. And I just sat. I mean, first of all, it sounds great. The production is huge, which I like. The guitars sound great. The guitar tone sounds great. But then this is a compliment, this howling banshee comes in over the top of it and just took my face off. I mean, what a voice. What a voice. I mean, I would kill for a voice like that. She's just incredible. And as much as I like the songwriting, and, you know, Josh has done a great job on the songwriting and it sounds great. For me, the star of the show is just this incredible vocalist. Her ability is just mind-bending. And that, I mean, just the chorus of the very first tune, you know, that's like Ignite, and she's just ripping it. And every, you know, there's also 5 tracks. It's not all like really heavy. There's also a ballad in there as well. But it's doing for me what I love, which is when I first listened to it, I was like, yeah, opening track, Ignite, that's still the one for me. And then as I listen to it, my favorite changes. And for me, that's the sign of something that's really great. So the band is called The Life Project. You can find it pretty much everywhere. I think it's Nuclear Blast is the only place you can get physical copies from. And funnily enough, I was on Nuclear Blast today looking at physical copies, and that was when I noticed that they had physical copies of the pre-sale for the next Carcass album, and that I'd completely missed that fucker was coming out.
Oh, I already pre-ordered that shit.
Oh man, I honestly feel like some of my metal credentials should be withdrawn.
Well, you get a pass because you're part of the metal scene. I'm just a nerdy fan, and so like I'm the one that's following everybody on all platforms, waiting for shit to come out so I can pre-order the color of the vinyl that I want.
Dude, if I'm part of the scene, then you are the scene. You know, because that's like
I wish I had if I had more say over the scene, you would hear a lot more interesting music out there.
Yes, and a lot more interesting production. That's for sure.
That too.
So yeah, I love it. Did you get anything out of it?
Honestly, no. I'm not the kind of person that just talks shit about stuff, but the only thing that I could equate it to, and I think this is because of where I live, because I grew up in Austin, Texas, which was at one time referred to as the live music capital of the world, which now it's a complete joke when they say that. Even before the pandemic, there was basically very little live music happening, and most of it was kind of that weird bridge between hard rock and blues. And so the stuff that's on the Live Project EP, while it's well done and they're good songs and all, I feel like I heard 30 to 50 bands every year that sounded like this in Austin.
Yeah. No, that's. Do you know what? My best friend, who, you know, we discovered metal together. Well, no, I introduced him to Rain in Blood, so you know, I win.
There you go.
But he said, like, I mentioned it to him, and he played it, and he was like, "You like this?" He was like, "What? With what's wrong with you?" I was like, "Look, I do not know, but my mind is open, and anything can wander in there and take root." And
well, that's the cool thing about, I think, with music, especially open-minded music listeners, because sometimes something that on paper shouldn't necessarily be something that connects with you, it ends up doing it. And sometimes there's no explainable reason for it. Like that's happened to me over the years. I've gone from hating a band, and then I get a little bit older and a song comes on and all of a sudden I feel something for it. And I'm like, this is unexplainable. Why all of a sudden do I want to listen to this?
Yeah, absolutely. And the weird thing is, music, and I do understand you're married, but music is a lot like, you know, like girlfriends, you know, it's like, look, this is just like, you know, I'm done. And then you bump into each other years later and you think, whoa, hang on, what was, there's still something there. And I genuinely think music is like that, because it's a love. It's a deep sense of attraction. And funnily enough, the scenario you're talking about, I think, leads us nicely into one of your new releases. You know, a band that maybe you haven't really been into before, and I might be the only person that you know who also likes them. Yes, I'm dropping the clues like a motherfucker here.
So we're gonna talk about the new Descendents album. Is that what we're gonna talk about here?
Well, you know, let's the new, in inverted commas, Descendents album.
Yeah, hold on. I got my vinyl here of it right here.
Oh, very nice.
Just because that's what I do.
It's called Ninth and Walnut for listeners.
Yeah, for where they I guess that's where they practiced, and the cover art is a garage door, which I'm assuming that's, you know, what's in reference to, but it is apparently songs that were all written between 1977 and 1980 by the original lineup of the Descendents, which would end up recording like Milo Goes to College. I think that's the only full length that full band is on, other than the Fat EP. And then, so they got together in the early 2000s to record these songs that they didn't want to put out back then. And then more recently, Bill Stevenson sends the files over to Milo, and Milo puts updated vocals. I don't even know if they recorded vocals back in the day, but Milo did them now. But he still sounds like the guy from the 80s to me.
Milo sounds like a teenager who's about to go to college.
Yeah.
His voice is timeless, which I absolutely adore, because it's like every time he sings something, it's like, the weird thing is, every time he sings something, I have a mental picture of him in my head singing, and then I'll see him doing an interview or something and go, oh yeah, he looks like that now, because we all get older.
But it's interesting because I was very excited about this album because the first few songs they released were all really good. Now, I do have to say that one of the songs they released is the best one on the album, and that's a song called Nightage, or Night Age, depending on how you want to say it.
Nightage is good, yeah.
Nightage. And so it's like, you know, 18 tracks, all ranging around the 1 minute or slightly above mark. And it's funny, like even back then, the amount of melody and catchiness that they can just cram into a minute of music, it's insane. And so some of it's not as strong as other songs, but overall the vibe of the album is really fun. If you're a Descendents fan, it's great. I think that if somebody's not into the Descendents, I don't think this is an album that's going to win anyone over. But it's a lot of fun, and honestly that's all I was really looking for. And just sometimes, you know, I think it's becoming a thing, you know, with older bands now, that you're seeing them go back and record stuff from the past. Like, you know, Mr. Bungle's a really great example of that, where And I honestly like that. I like hearing a mature take on stuff that wasn't necessarily commercially released. So demos and whatever.
Yeah.
I like that kind of shit. Now, when it comes to a band just fully re-recording some classic songs, I'm not on board for that. But this kind of project is something that I get really excited about, because I'm like, oh, these are songs that most people haven't heard. And Bill Stevenson did as he normally does, an incredible job making a sound that sounds kind of old school, but and timeless at the same time.
Yeah.
And so like I just gotta give it up to them, because it's not anything unique in the Descendents catalog, but it's absolutely fun. Did you get a chance to hear it all the way through?
I did, and bearing in mind, I have a Descendants and all tattoo on my leg, and I'm not the most tattooed person. That's how much I love the band. I listened to it once, and I went, "Well, I've done that now." Well done, lads. Glad you did that. I mean, I like the project for all the reasons you said, and I love the fact they've done it. And I love the fact they've done it more than the end result. That's pretty much the only thing I can really contribute.
How did you feel about their last proper album, though? Was that one that you listened to multiple times, or was that more of a one-off thing as well?
No. Original Descendants, like modern day original Descendants. Oh, dude, I was all over it. I had the I had the T-shirt, the album, and the EP package. Like,
Oh, okay.
The most music and the most merch you can get in one package. I'll have that, please.
I figure if you have the band tattooed on your flesh, then you probably get the big package, for lack of a better.
Now, can we be clear that I have not had a tattoo on my big package? It is on my leg. No, I'm still a fan. I think the last album, Hypercaffeinate Spasnate, was better than Cool to Be You, which had its moments, but it was a little bit. I'll use a word that apparently reviewers use. It was a little bit lackluster.
Oh, yeah. I'm honestly, I don't think they haven't done a bad album. I actually got to see them on the Everything Sucks tour.
Me too.
And that was a big deal for me, because I got into the Descendants in the early 90s, when they were split up already, and Summary came out.
How did you get into them?
The movie Pump Up the Volume with Christian Slater.
Wrong answer. The correct answer is, well, actually, Howard, thank you very much. It was you. You're wearing a Descendants t-shirt on the back of Moshkinstein.
Well, no, because I lived in America where you couldn't see Moshkinstein. Nobody knew it existed over here. So later on, I saw that, but you may have seen it, the movie Pump Up the Volume with Christian Slater. He plays Der Wiener Schnitzel and as soon as I heard that, I was like, who the hell is this? And then I went to the store and bought the Summary cassette, and I've been a fan ever since.
And that movie did so much good for them, which is great. But for a kid in England who's into this completely unknown American punk band who've split up before anybody even really knew who they were. I mean, I met John Peel at an original lineup of Napalm Death, DRI, and Holy Terror gig years back, and thanked him for. I mean, you'll have to do an insert here and explain who John Peel is for non-British viewers.
Well, he's known over here as well, because
brilliant. Okay,
for a very long time, you would always see bands release albums called the Peel Sessions.
Peel Sessions, yes. And
so he was a guy that had a radio show, and he played cool shit and had the bands come in and record special sets for his radio show. And so he wasn't huge over here, but he was, for music nerds, I think everybody knows who John Peel is.
Well, I was lucky enough to bump into him at this gig and say, look, thank you. You played the Descendants one night, Hurtin' Crew off Enjoy, and
so that's how you got it, was through John Peel. That's
John
awesome.
Peel, and in return, I sent John Peel Moshkinstein demo. He only fucking played it,
Nice.
That's why he gets a thanks on the album. And if you go online if you Google John Peel, there's a website called John Peel's Record Collection, and it's literally his record collection, and you can drag your cursor along and you can click on every record in his collection. And indeed, there is a copy of Moshkinstein by Acid Rain.
Nice. That's awesome.
I made sure the label sent him one. But anyway, hey, welcome to the world of tangents, everybody.
That's this is that's the one thing, is that we'll have a plan, but if we don't let these conversations stray a little bit, this would be a really boring. It'd be just like missionary position sex, and then that's all you get. No, we're gonna give you doggy and wheelbarrow and all the other positions that you could imagine.
Do you know what we're really missing? What we're really missing is a personal assistant in the corner that we can tell to Google things, and then we can both pretend to be Jamie Jasta.
Oh yeah, that honestly, like on the Cranked and Ranked podcast, sometimes we Google shit and I will edit it out so it just sounds like we're super smart about everything we're talking about. Well,
make sure you edit that bit out as well. Otherwise, otherwise the game's up.
I guess let's move on to the next one. The next album you want to talk about.
Well, okay. So you start. Well, I'm going to pick one that I know for a fact that you will have been listening to as well, and I genuinely don't know if you're going to thank me for this tip off or whether you're going to be going, yeah, not really getting out of it. But so you know what's coming up. It is Kingbuffalo, The Burden of Restlessness, which I discovered properly old school way. The artwork spoke to me, love. I saw the artwork and I thought, love, that speaks to me. And I just clicked on it, and I thought, I was literally, I kind of went in my head. I was saying to myself, just give it a chance. Just give it a chance. You like the artwork, give it a chance. Don't click off after 5 seconds if it starts with keyboards and a female vocal. Just see what happens. And it came on, and I was like, this is intriguing. This is intriguing. And then I clicked the next song. This is intriguing. And the service I use, you get a minute of each. And I was just like, yeah, fuck it. I'm going to have this album. For me, I don't know about you. For me, it's hypnotic. There is something about this album that great for driving, running, cycling. When I go running, often my thoughts will crowd music out of my ears, and my thoughts are louder than the music I'm listening to. But if I go running, listening to this, everything kind of tunes together, and I'm sounding like a real hippie here, but it's proggy. It's got great vocals. They're a trio. I mean, what? It's just. I've absolutely gone head over heels for this album, to the extent that yesterday I bought it from the band's website, and basically the CD's $10 and the postage is $16. So it's costing me 20.
Shit.
Yeah. So it's good. And when it arrives, I bet I get hammered for an importation fee as well at the post office.
Wow.
But it's, I mean, I've got to have that motherfucker on CD. And unfortunately for you, some amazing vinyl, but it's all sold out.
Yeah. I all the things that you said about it, I agree with you about because it is not only that, it's a really well produced album.
Good point.
It sounds really good. So that's the thing, is that this is an album that you recommended on the last time we talked. And
well, it was the very first episode of Old Bollocks, which wasn't even called Old Bollocks because Old Bollocks hadn't started yet.
Yeah, it was the demo of Old Bollocks. But I had the same reaction where you told me to look it up, and I saw the artwork, and I love that album cover. And I can give or take the band name, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah. But when I put it on, all of the things that you said, because you referenced Tool. And then you referenced them, not being afraid to sit on a riff for a little while. And all those things are great. I cannot say that this is not a bad album. I can say that I got a little bored
Right.
Because to put it into context, I'm not a fan of modern Tool. Like the Tool that's come out the last few albums, it's good. There's no way I can listen to that and go, this is shit. But I can say it's too repetitive. The songs, you could take a chunk out of one song and put it in another, and I wouldn't even know that you did that. And this album has a little bit of that, where it feels like they came up with a really great vibe, and then they said, cool, let's do 6 more of those. And then they did 6 more songs like that. But that being said, if you're a fan of that sort of hypnotic thing where a song kind of revolves around one note the whole time, and it's got some odd time signatures, and it's dark, but not like super heavy dark, then this is an album that I think that you would love. But yeah, the repetitiveness of it, I started to not be paying attention to the music anymore, because a lot of times when I listen to things, I will sometimes just sit down and nothing else is going on in the room. Maybe I'll glance at the album artwork or whatever. But I'll just be listening to it, and I'll listen to how things are panned in the mix, and how how much reverb is on that snare. Can I hear that? Like, all those little things I listen to. But then after a couple of tracks, I got to the point where I found myself forgetting that I was listening to it. Yeah. And so that's really the only fault the album has.
I completely agree with what you said, and I including everything about Tool. I mean, the high watermark is still Anema for me. Yeah. That's anemia. Does anybody know how to fucking say it? I don't know. But for me, that's still the high point for Tool.
Undertow is my favorite Tool album, but I agree that arguably that album is better. But Undertow is the one. I saw them on the tour for Undertow, and it was really my first proper concert was seeing Tool in 1994. I saw the first time I saw Tool was when they supported Rage Against the Machine. Oh, that would have been a fucking great show.
Dude, that was a tour. Yeah. Oh, that was a tour. That was a great show. The funny thing is, I remember the band I was in at the time, I went and watched with the bass player, and the bass player was just found Maynard really annoying and referred to him, looked like he said he looked like he looked like a cat trying to cough up a fur ball. Oh yeah, and you know exactly what you mean with Maynard's kind of performance. But yeah, I agree about the forgetting that you're listening to it as well, and again, it like the previous thing I mentioned, the Life Project, which is not something I would normally kind of be, that it's not the kind of regular listening. Mm-hmm. Neither is this. This isn't my kind of regular listening either, but for some reason I've gravitated towards it, and I like, but I agree, it does tend to go on a bit, and there are times where you can go, and I'll have to check my phone and see if like repeat is on. Is repeat on? Is this the same song 3 times, or am I the 3rd song in? I love it. I love it. There you go.
Yeah, that's the one thing I want to get across, is that for people who are interested in that style, like, this is really good. It's a really good album. It's just, I like my things to be a little bit, especially these days. I want it to be as much as a band can fit into a song with me going, oh, I didn't expect that. Oh, what was that? Which brings me to this album right here. The
Mordred, the Dark Parade.
Mordred, the Dark Parade. So I'm already a big Mordred fan.
Who isn't? Come on.
I got into them. Well, I first heard them when I was really young, and they played one of their videos on Headbangers Ball in like 1991 or something like that.
Oh, dude, way to make me feel like an old bastard. Yeah.
But and you're not that much older than me, though. What are you, like 6 years, maybe 7 years older than me? Because I was born in 78. What year were you born?
Right, so I'm nearly a decade older than you, though. So I was born in 70.
Okay, all right.
So and the thing is that funnily enough, listening to Cranked and Ranked, and listening to the two of you, right, and I forget the other host's name. I do apologize. Would you remind me?
It's Eddie Sparks.
Eddie Sparks. I mean, hello, Eddie, by the way. We're and you know, just because we live in the same country, I know England is small, but Eddie and I haven't met. Okay, but to hear Eddie saying, like, you know, I was really, you know, where I got to see Metallica for the first time on the Hardwired tour, and I was just like, oh God, I feel ancient. You know, well, I really do.
Yeah, I mean, but it's really interesting. Just everyone's perspective, depending on when you come into something, because that's what makes it really interesting to me. Is if I literally do a podcast with one of my friends from school and we talk about music, it's going to be the same. We're going to be saying the same things to each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, you know, with Metallica, first time I saw Metallica was also in 1994, which was they were on the tail end of the super fucking long Black Album tour, and there was no load anywhere in sight yet. Yeah. But anyway, back to Mordred.
Yes. Oh, yeah. We totally got off on a tangent there.
So Mordred, the one thing I'm going to say is that there was a lot. To me, there was a lot of hype and build up that I created for this album because I was already a big fan of theirs, and they came out a little bit ago with an EP, and there was a song from that EP that came out, which is called "Not for You." Is that what it's called? I think it is. I
think so, yeah.
And I absolutely loved it. So from that point on, I'm just like, I can't wait to hear what the full length sounds like. And I have to admit, like, I like it more than I thought that I was going to like it. And the reason for that is I sat down and listened to it, like I said I do, and every single song, I was like, I don't know where this is going. I don't know what the next song is going to sound like. Things would pop up, whether it be a sound effect or a keyboard part or a vocal choice from Scott. All these things would happen in the album where I just go, this is fascinating, and I cannot predict where any of this is going. And then at the end of the day, after the album finished, I was just like, I got to listen to this shit again. Because it was, they have done exactly what I want more bands to do, especially old school bands. Because, you know, unfortunately, if we see now I have you on the show with me, I'm afraid that eventually people from some old school bands will watch, and you're going to hear me saying shit like Overkill needs to stop putting out the same album over and over again.
Yeah.
And so,
And
so with Mordred, it's beyond what I thought they could do. And it almost seems like they made choices to sort of go against even what they're known for. Because there's a little bit of you got the DJ pause, like record scratching on it, and you've got a little bit of funkiness and some groove to it. But even like Scott's vocal delivery, he changed it up a little bit from what he used to do. And it's almost like he took a little bit of a hip hop influence. And then when he sings, he doesn't sound like the same dude, but he still sounds like he has such a great control over what he's doing with his voice. But I just like the fact that they didn't just say, hey, everybody loves In This Life. Let's make music that sounds kind of similar to In This Life, only now. And they could have done that, and probably the metal community would have been like, hell yeah, album of the year. But like in this case, they made me happy because they put out an album that I keep wanting to listen to it again, because there's so many things in the songs where I go, that's badass. And then the next thing I'll go, I didn't remember that part. And that's fucking cool. And so I have nothing but great things to say. My only gripe about this album is that production wise, as a mix, sometimes the vocals sit way too much on top of everything. And I'm just like, oh, they should have found a way to fold them in a little bit. I mean, I'm not an engineer, so I don't really know exactly what goes into that, but it does sit a little bit too high sometimes. But other than that, absolutely great album.
Well, tip from the top, the vocals should sit just in the mix. The vocals should sit just above the snare drum in metal. Yeah. That's where the vocals should be. And for me, way too many metal bands have the vocals way too loud. And a prime example of that for me would be Lamb of God. I'm just back the fuck off a bit, you know.
Why are you yelling at me for the whole album?
Yeah. I mean, I'm the singer, remember, you know, and for me, you know, it needs to come together. Well, look, I've got to be honest, right? I I've had this probably longer than you, because I got it through other means, and that doesn't mean I stole it, by the way. And I found it kind of tough to listen to initially.
Oh, really?
Yes, I did. I found it tough to listen to initially. Well, I've had Demonic for a long time, the song Demonic.
Yeah.
And then I kind of, I don't know, I just started, there's something stuck, and I started playing it a bit more and a bit more. And initially I was like, yeah, right. I really like 3 of the songs, and the rest I can take or leave. And then I was like, no, I really like 4 of them. No, I like 5. Right. Well, basically there's 8 songs on it, and there's only one that I don't like, and I don't like it for stupid reasons. I don't like it for nothing to do with music. Okay.
Can you tell me which one that is?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm never going to leave anybody wondering,
Good, good.
I've been doing stand-up comedy for 25 years, and
plug that too. Go ahead and plug that too.
Click some links, motherfuckers, whatever. In comedy, I used to do quite a lot of topical material. Now, the trouble with topical material is that you can have a gag that is absolutely 24 karat gold. It is killing every night. And then after 8, maybe 10 days, you have to drop it because it's not topical anymore.
Yeah.
And there's a rule in comedy as well, is that if you have to say to everybody, hey, remember at the beginning of the year when this happened?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, just get a crowbar out and try and get your topical gag in, that is no longer topical. And it's a wonderful message, and it still stands today. But the song I Am Charlie is so gratuitously out of date from the events that it refers to, that it's like, you may as well be about Krakatoa, or the Spanish Inquisition. That's my comedy brain. So I do realize I'm being exceptionally hard on it, and it is still a great message, but it irks me. And, no one's looking for irk, not when they're listening to music. So my apologies, but
I didn't get that from that song, but I could totally see it.
But my honest opinion is, it's just great. I mean, I've talked to Scott a lot about this. I've had him on the podcast. I've had him on the Acid Rain page doing live chats and all the rest of it. And we're desperate to tour together as well. The Acid Rain Mordred tour. You might even make it over here for that.
Sure. If anything was going to pull me over, it'd be that kind of tour. I'm just going to hide in their luggage as they fly over to the UK.
Brilliant. Well, I look, I love it. I know the amount of work they've put into it and why it was delayed and everything else. And it is just, it's worked. It's a great comeback, and an album that is not great, in my humble opinion, is Amazonia by Gojira.
Wow. Okay. We're moving over to Gojira now. So,
well, I've only got 33% battery left, mate.
I thought when you told me you were going to change, rethink this album, I thought you didn't like it, and now you do. But it's the opposite.
Right. Now, this is a really interesting, and I'm glad I sent you that message when I did. I mean, I'd had a couple of drinks, right? And I sent Stephen a message a few days ago before recording, and I said to you, I think I might have to rethink Gojira, because I'd been playing highlights of it to a friend of mine, and he was going, "This is really good," and I was sat there going, yeah, what the fuck's wrong with me? This is really, really good. And then I tried to listen to the album again and fell asleep. And what I found was, hey, These bits are amazing. And do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to now recall your review of Fear Factory, which nobody has heard, that we did on the first episode of this that is unavailable. So don't worry about it, folks. I'm going to recall I'm going to recall your review of Fear Factory and say, that's what Gojira is doing for me. I go like, oh yeah, no, this is cool. Oh man, what a riff. Oh, what a groove. And 5 minutes later, I'm like thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner. And then I remember the new Gojira album is on. Now, I have a long history with Gojira, that started many albums ago. And I bought all the up trying to get into them and I couldn't. And the one that cracked the door open was Magma, their last album. I was like, that is awesome. And it was in my albums of the year. This isn't even in my albums of the month. And the weird thing is, all the constituent parts are there. It sounds great. There's some great moments. There's some great riffs. But I find it. I'm starting to find the French weirdness contrived. Let's do a song called The Chant, and we shall just make noise for a few minutes, and then we shall bring the riff in. And I just think, and I'm like, this is why we left Europe, motherfucker.
I'm kind of with you on that, because I'm a Gojira fan, but they're not progressing quickly enough for me. I got into them on The Way of All Flesh, which I still think is a really great album. But this one was another one. This is another one of their albums that I listened to it and I really like it. Just like with Kingbuffalo, I can't deny that it's a really good album. But really, there's only 2 tracks on it that I went back to and I remembered their names. The song Newfound and the song... is it The Chant? Yeah, The Chant. That's what it is.
There's only 2 songs I can remember the name of, and I can clearly see you reading them off the screen.
Well, no, because I'm trying to remember, because when I finished listening to it, those were the 2 that I went back to look at, and I go, oh, those were the 2 that I really liked. But the similar thing with both of those, if I remember right, is that there's more singing in those, and so
I think you're right. Yeah,
I almost want Gojira to pull a Mastodon and just get rid of the whole extreme kind of thing. Because I feel like if they went full progressive, I think they could do some cool shit,
Yeah.
And so I like this album, but I want them to come out with something where I don't expect what they're doing. And so I'm kind of with you on that.
And again, do you know what? I'm going to come across as such a cunt, but people know, people who are aware of my opinions will probably be expecting that. I find the whole Amazonia thing a bit contrived as well. It's like, and again, I'm aware it's just me. I was exceptionally harsh about the I Am Charlie. I'm not apologizing for it. No one else lives in my head, so you're only going to hear this from me and other idiots. But I don't know. I've found the whole Amazonia. Oh, we need trees. And it's like, yeah, and look left and right when you cross the road. I mean, fuck, yeah, we're aware of this. Testament was singing about Save the Planet in 91. Yeah, we are aware of it. I don't.
89, fucking 89, they were singing about that.
That's it. Yeah, I don't need patronizing to death. Right. Okay. And by the same token, people may be listening to him saying, yes, but people still aren't doing anything. Yes, you're right. But I don't see any government in the world hearing Gojira Amazonia and going, do you know what? Fuck it. We really do need to do something.
Yeah.
Yep. The French boys, they're onto something.
Yeah. I'm with you there. I do. It some of their shit does get a little samey in their approach, whether it be lyrics or just in using a particular guitar pedal on a certain part of a riff, which they've done on other songs. And even though I'm such a basic bitch when it comes to the squealies or pinch harmonics on you do a really badass pinch harmonic, even though I've heard it 1,000 times, I'll be like, ooh, that's fucking tasty.
But do you know, I know what you mean, but there is a riff on this album where it's dun 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 dun, and I was thinking, is that on Magma? Is that on Magma?
I think that's also one of the 2 songs that I really liked. But it did remind me. It reminded me a little bit of "Becoming" by Pantera, which is like, it's like So I'm like, all right, these guys are still doing some dime bag kind of stuff. All right.
Talk about it, complete opposites. Sophisticated French musicians and American rednecks. Oh, that's brilliant. That is brilliant. Can you imagine? Yeah. Well, look, have you got another new release you want to do?
No. Let's move on to if we're going to have a dying computer, which just so everybody out there knows, Howard was completely unprepared and unprofessional, and he doesn't have a way to charge his computer. So it's his fault that this episode is probably shorter than future ones will be.
Yes,
now we get that out of the way.
Yeah, no, my apologies, everybody. And I have actually been round. I did actually spend half my day trying to find a charger, and it turns out that my laptop is super weird and has the smallest kind of charging hole there is. Let's move on, otherwise this will become a podcast about small holes.
Classic album. So now is the part of the episode where we talk about a classic album that we've chosen to talk about.
Yeah, and I thank you for the brilliant description. And I've got to say that I hold my hand up. This was my idea because I think there's something to be got out of we will decide what's classic. So you listeners out there and you viewers out there will decide what's classic, and feel free to argue, but it's music. There is no right or wrong. It's art. You either get it or you don't, and it's that simple. It's just opinion. There's no linear. There is no negative and positive. It's just straight ahead. Now, I know that you love this album. I haven't got a great deal of love for it, but I think that's more interesting than what you would normally get, which is either two people slating it, two people loving it, or two people arguing about, I love it, well, I hate it. And I just want to know what it is, what attracted you, the story of the album for you, your highlights, the things you like, the things you don't like. I mean, and all of that. I listened to it today all the way through, including the extras. I must admit, when I say I listened to all of it, I did skip one song.
Can I be honest? I skipped that song too, because I've heard that song enough times. While I like it, I've heard it enough.
When they started playing it on the last time I saw them, when they were on a bill with Slayer, I was just like, me and my best friend just turned to each other and we were just like, if I won the lottery, I would offer this band like probably $1 million to never ever play this ever again anywhere. We should probably.
Antisocial is what we're talking about, and we're talking about this album. I'm always going to have my vinyl on hand because
brilliant, yeah, absolutely.
State of Euphoria. To quickly jump into how I found it, because I heard this album first in early 1990. So Persistence of Time hadn't come out yet. This was the last Anthrax album, and I was in junior high school, and there was a girl in my class who was kind of a rock and roll kind of chick. And she knew that I was into the hard rock shit. So at that point, I wasn't listening to metal. I was listening to Skid Row, Motley Crue, Guns N' Roses, Def Leppard. Like that's what I was into.
Well, but by the same token, that was there was a time when that was actually metal.
Well, I mean, and some of it is heavy. I mean, you can give it that. And so the only metal that I can remember hearing was you would see music videos for like Breaking the Law by Judas Priest. And I'm always like, this is metal? I'm kind of not really into this because it's kind of dumb.
Welcome to Judas Priest videos.
Yeah. And then I heard I saw the video for One by Metallica, but I remember as a 10-year-old kid or 11-year-old kid, I was a little bit scared by it. I was like,
gave you nightmares. I was
like, this is fucking insane.
Do you know what's really weird is that I listened to the episode of Cranked and Ranked this morning where you talk about all of this. So now to be talking about it face to face with you is like it's like I don't know where I am. I don't know if it's morning, evening, or daytime. Am I awake or asleep? I have no idea.
It's Inception on Old Bollocks.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's Inception in small holes. Yes.
Yeah. So back to the rock and roll chick in my school. Yes. She knew I listened to this stuff, and so she let me borrow 2 albums, one of which was the debut album from the band Trickster. And, the other one was State of Euphoria by Anthrax. And
because that's a perfect pair. That is. They match each other beautifully.
I think she was thinking of what she thought I was going to like and trying to turn me on to something better. And so
you owe that girl. You so owe that girl.
So, and I listened to the Trickster album one time, and once I put on State of Euphoria, so not only was it my first experience with thrash metal, it was my first full-on metal album that I had heard.
Wow.
And it just blew me away, because before that, I knew there were things that I liked that the guitars did in certain songs, not knowing that they were called riffs. But I started to hear that with this album, and I'm like, this is like, it literally opened up a whole new world of what I wanted to listen to and led me down the path of getting into metal.
Yeah.
And heavier shit, and mostly thrash, because I love all thrash metal from that period of time. Even the also ran bands that sound like 10 other bands that came out in 1989. I still like that because I enjoy the vibe of it all. And so I understand why people don't think State of Euphoria is as good, because it doesn't have an I Am the Law on it.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, if you look at Persistence of Time, feels like a more solid, cohesive statement of an album than State of Euphoria does. So State of Euphoria is more just like a collection of songs, some of which aren't quite as memorable as other songs that they've done. So I absolutely get people not liking it as much. But for me, there is a vibe on this album that just, if I think about what I love about thrash metal, it feels like this album. There's like a liveliness to it. There's a lot of cool riffs on it. It's fast. There's a little bit of like, talking about comic books, talking about, Stephen King, talking about social issues. You get a little bit of that in there. So really it's just like, it's almost like the bottom floor of thrash metal. Like get in here and learn about it. And then now we're going to take you up to the top. And so I'm never going to argue that it's better than some of their other albums. I argue against people that complain about it sounding rushed. And I always say the only reason people say that is because the band said it was rushed. If they had never said that.
Yeah, I agree, because it doesn't sound rushed. And especially the remaster, which is fucking gorgeous. I mean, production is better than Piece of blah, blah, blah,
Among
blah.
the Living.
No, Time. Yeah.
I think it sounds better. I think it sounds better than Among the Living also.
No, I agree. I think this is where the production matured, because we all know about like the rows that went on about the Among the Living production. Yeah. And Persistence of Time, I think it's a bit overblown, the production. Whereas with this, and Scott has got his guitar tone. This is the first time the guitar tone's perfect. Yeah. And the drums are massively improved from Among the Living.
And don't forget, Joey sounds fantastic on this album.
He does, but unfortunately, it's for me, it's his weakest album. And
do you think it's because of the lyrics or because of his performance?
Some of the lyrics I don't like for the same reason that you do, so that's cool. Yeah. But I mean, I am going to be picky, and I am going to be a twat, because there's no answer to this. But really, schism.
I like that.
How the fuck that song gets out of the rehearsal room, I'll never know. But no, for me, that highlights an issue that I have with the album, and that is, and this is a typical Howard H. Smith useless conclusion. The whole album for me is a bit na. The vocals follow the guitars too often.
I could see that, yeah.
For me, you can get away with that once. Like once in one song, Plan of the Damned, the chorus, right? Okay, that's you can get away with it, and it sounds great. But melody lines have to work in tandem with what's going on, not do what's going on, do the same as what's going on, and just do it higher. And there are too many moments on the album for me where the guitars are following, where Joey is either he's following the guitar, he's following the main riff. And that is where, for me, Rushed comes in.
Yeah, I honestly, now that you're mentioning that, like, I immediately think of 3 songs in a row, not in a row, but on the first side. I mean, Be All End All, he follows the guitar line. My favorite song on the album, which is Make Me Laugh, that there's parts of that follow the guitar line. Who Cares Wins, that follows the guitar line. So I get what you're saying, which is why I said like I understand the argument that it's not as good, and I just don't understand. I don't understand it being. Uh-oh. So it's still recording, and Howard disappeared. So he's calling me right now. He's calling me right now. I'm still filming. I'm just so you know, I'm still filming, and I don't need to have this up to my ear because it's technologies, and I have this. I'm doing an outro. I'm like, Howard disappeared, so that concludes our discussion of State of Euphoria. Yeah. I'm gonna put a little caption that says Howard is talking right now. And it died. So yeah, so his laptop died at 20%. He says he would feel very sorry, but you're a bunch of cunts, and he doesn't really care that you couldn't have a full episode. So okay, so that was Mr. Howard H. Smith on the phone, and yeah, his computer died. So that concludes this premiere episode of Old Bollocks. Why do I have to be the one that says that? He needs to say that. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. We're going to be doing these probably once a month. So keep an eye out, and also go listen to Talking Bollocks, his podcast. You can find it on all your podcast platforms. And if you want to, go check out his Patreon, Howard H. Smith, and listen to Acid Rain, and subscribe to my channel if you're not subscribed yet, because I do a whole lot of videos, and you should check them out. So yeah, that's it. That's it for this first episode of Old Bollocks. God damn it, I said it again. That's all right. That was better. It sounded better that time. I could fake a British accent, but that would be pretty embarrassing. So I won't do that. But I will tell you all, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all again very, very soon.